Hi, Tera here. Today is the prize drawing for a beautiful island package tour. I want to win so badly. But well, there are 50,000 people participating and there'll be only 2 winners. I barely have a chance and I cannot afford a decent holiday either. Oh, the translation is on. I'm watching. Wow! Could that be? I even felt scared a bit because I'd won. I can't believe it. Just as I came to my senses, I started packing. The ocean, the beach and fruit are waiting for me. Yahoo! I wonder who's the second lucky one. The hotel just took my breath away. 5 stars, a 24/7 buffet, spa procedures, all kinds of excursions, the best places at the beach. Everything was included in the tour. It was just impossible to believe that. I'd never won $1 before, and now I was in this paradise. I hurried to my room. It must have been a palace, all right. I'm dying to see it. But in my room there was some guy. Excuse me, who are you? I was told this was the room for the prize drawing winner. It turned out he actually was the second winner, and my room was the next one. Thus, I met Ray. And I mean, he was nice. The weirdest thing was that we turned out to come from the same town. Oh my gosh! There were 50,000 people from all the states, and the 2 winners are both from a tiny town of Leavenwater. What a coincidence! Everyone on the island, besides the personnel, was speaking some language I couldn't understand, so Ray and I stuck together. He was a great companion, and I felt attracted to him. We never left each other, even swam together and ate at the same table, and in a few days we confessed our love to each other. Oh yes, I fell in love with him at the first sight. Ray was ideal. The 2 of us winning the tour and ending up in this fairy tale was a sign. It seemed I'd found my soulmate. We were so happy. Once at breakfast, the administrator came to us. He was the best English speaker among all the hotel employees. He informed our tour included a trip to secret islands. We were lucky, as that place was nearly unheard of. To keep the nature intact, tourists weren't usually brought there. Wow! Awesome! Of course we are going! We were just taken aback by that beauty. Now that's what I call nature. We spent several hours there, swimming in the crystal clear water, hiding from the sun under a mangosteen tree and eating its juicy fruit. We never wanted to leave. On the way back, Ray and I had a slight stomachache. Must have been the fruit. We'd consumed far too many. At the reception, the administrator gave us the keys and asked if we were all right. Our faces were far too pale. When we reached the room, the pain intensified, so we couldn't even move. It seemed our guts were about to explode. And then someone knocked on the door. We had no strength left to open and just groaned in response. The administrator opened the door with his own key and said he came to ask how we were, but at seeing our condition he rushed to the phone. High fever and a stomachache. Looks bad. We need to go to the hospital right now. The administrator called the ambulance and we were taken away. But not to the nearest hospital. We were brought to the countryside, to some backwater. We were told there was a cool clinic with the best doctors. Just as we arrived, we got tested and they started injecting and infusing us and applying some ointment on our stomachs. I felt better, but Ray didn't. He ate more mangosteens on that island. Oh, my poor Ray. Come on, dear, get well soon. We've just met each other. And we have not only a week of holiday ahead, but a whole life. The next day I was able to stand up and walk around my ward. I even started drinking water. Ray, you'll be fine soon. I came closer to him and screamed. His eyes rolled. Help, someone! Help! Help him, please! Doctors ran to him and immediately took him to the ICU. What is happening here? Isn't it an ordinary food poisoning? I ran into the corridor after Ray, but the ICU door slammed right in front of me. All that was left for me was waiting. In several hours, a doctor came out and looked at me woefully. "What? This can't be! No, you are lying! I don't believe it! He couldn't die! Ray! Oh, my Ray!" I fainted and opened my eyes in my ward with an IV system. The administrator came and translated the doctor's conclusion. We had an acute infection, but Ray turned out to be weaker and the cure didn't help him. After the autopsy, his body would be sent back home and I'd be discharged tomorrow, as I still had procedures in the evening and the next morning. Before leaving, he gave me Ray's parents' phone number in case I wanted to speak with them. "Oh, I really don't think so." I sat still in my bed. It all seemed to be a nightmare or a rave. I recalled meeting Ray, having lunches together, swimming in the ocean, dancing and confessing our love to each other. I recalled how we dreamt to come back home and rent a house to live there together. For what on earth had I bought this lottery ticket? It would have been better if I had never had any of this. Please, someone wipe my memory. I cried my heart out. I felt my life had ended. Suddenly I heard a weird noise. I got up and looked around. Where was that coming from? Something outside the window, maybe? I looked there and froze in horror. Ray's pale spirit was behind the glass. Fear stiffened my body. I couldn't move a finger. "What do you want? Do you want me to set you free?" I heard, No, on the contrary, let me in." "Are you alive? Ray!" I immediately opened the window and jumped out to him. "What's happened? They told me you were dead." Ray suddenly put his hand over my mouth and dragged me to the bushes. "Hey, what are you doing?" Then he whispered to me he'd came to his senses in the ICU and overheard a convo of 2 doctors. He understood from it that us winning the tour was no coincidence. It was planned to bring 2 young people from a certain region to this island. Here was a secret biolab. We were brought on the trip on purpose to be infected with a new disease, and then the administrator sent us to this clinic so that they could test the new medication on us. But why did the doc tell me you died? Ray suggested they still needed him for some experiments, and the doctor told me this so that I stopped looking for him. But worst of all, the doctors noticed Ray was conscious and heard their talk, so both of us were in grave danger now, because they must have been hunting us already. We need to get out of this damned island as soon as possible. So here you are, we heard from the window. Oh no! Run! Run! Did you like this video? Subscribe and give us a like. Support our channel. Thank you.
A chicken! A live chicken! My stomach immediately rumbled. My legs led me to a chicken running around the yard, and at one point, I grabbed it, inhaling this delicious smell. This was the only way I could satisfy my hunger. There was no choice. I brought the struggling chicken to my lips and opened my mouth. I lived with my younger brother Nicholas and raised him. Although we had a house that we inherited, the money from the rare part-time jobs was only enough for basic things like food and paying bills. Nevertheless, I never asked for help from anyone. After all, people do not help for free, and it's humiliating. And I always told my brother that we could only rely on each other. We coped well together. But one day, I had a very bad stomachache. The pills did not help, and I had to go to the clinic. After the examination, the doctor's words horrified me. He said that I had a rare, dangerous disease. My stomach was self-destructing, and I needed an expensive surgery. Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't have so much money. But the doctor suddenly announced that for such cases, they had an experimental development. A device that was attached to the stomach and prevented its destruction, and most importantly, everything was completely free. Because this method of treatment was still being tested, I was wary. Free help was suspicious, but I remembered about my brother, who would stay with him if I was not there. It was worth the risk for Nicholas. I signed the agreement, and on the same day, I was hospitalized. After the surgery, my stomach finally stopped hurting, and a few days later, I was discharged. Nicholas was insanely happy to see me healthy, and gradually, we returned to normal life. The only thing was that after eating, I always felt sick, and gradually, I reduced the portions, less and less every day, until I realized food did not attract me at all. Even more than that, I couldn't eat at all. I began to lose weight, but I tried not to pay attention. Maybe it was just a side effect after the surgery and everything would pass soon. But one day, a neighbor came to us and asked for salt. And while he was talking to me, I couldn't take my eyes off him. How he smelled! It was crazy! I gave him the salt, and then the neighbor came very close. I couldn't help it. The smell was driving me crazy. It was the shirt that smelled like this, and the second I attacked him, trying to bite off at least a piece of fabric. The neighbor threw me back in horror and rushed into the yard, and I was left with a button, pulled out, and did not understand what was happening. I tried to eat his shirt? What? I thought it was a simple misunderstanding, but the next day, when I was going to work part-time and put on my shoes, I stared at the shoe. The laces on it glittered so appetizing, like chocolate. I licked my lips. My stomach rumbled harder, and at that moment, I went nuts. I pulled out the lace and swallowed it with an appetite. And then, my hunger subsided. I froze in horror. What the hell was that? Instead of working part-time, I immediately went back to the clinic. I described my symptoms to them, but the clinic receptionist kindly replied that this was a side effect of the surgery. Everything would pass soon. I was returning home by bus. The doctor's words made me feel better. I couldn't wait for this effect to pass. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even notice how I started chewing on a tie of a man sitting next to me. Only when he shouted angrily at me to stop, I came to my senses, and I was completely confused. Since then, the hunger became stronger, the stomach rumbled, and I didn't want simple food. Due to exhaustion, I didn't have the strength to lift my bag. Nicholas saw that something was wrong with me, and he was very worried, but I calmed him down and told him that this side effect would soon pass. One day, Nicholas was doing his homework, but when he went to get water, I suddenly looked at his notebook with homework, and this ink on the paper seemed so appetizing to me. Like a mad woman, I grabbed the notebook and stuffed it into my mouth. I chewed sheet after sheet, and just at that moment, Nicholas returned with a glass of water. He froze in shock and he asked what I was doing. I spat out the rest of the notebook and immediately joked that his homework was done disgustingly and that I had only done him a favor by eating it. My brother laughed and I calmly exhaled. The next morning, I woke up completely exhausted and went to wash my face. But when I squeezed the paste on the brush, I realized that it also smelled terribly delicious, and then I went into overdrive. I resolutely squeezed the entire tube of toothpaste into my mouth, but it wasn't enough, and I ate the tube itself. The hunger immediately receded, and I felt better. I was hungry, but my hunger did not recede, so I bought a batch of shoelaces at the nearest store and ate them like spaghetti, combined with paper, fabrics, and candy wrappers. And my favorite delicacy was a sandwich made of sawdust, covered with a slice of soap. And what about salad of candy wrappers? It was just divine. By a miracle, I managed to hide my food from Nicholas. And in front of him, I pretended to eat ordinary food. But at every opportunity, I threw it in the trash. I ate a lot, but I didn't gain weight because there were no nutrients in my food. A week later, I became very thin. Things were hanging on me. I needed normal food. One day, I went to work part-time in the village, and suddenly, I smelled the smell of chicken from someone's yard. A live chicken. I didn't even remember sneaking in there and grabbing it. I was so hungry. I brought it closer to my mouth when suddenly I froze. No, this was too much. I would not fall for this. I let go of the fried chicken and immediately went to the clinic. I was stupid. I trusted strangers. I arrived and resolutely approached the receptionist. The side effect does not pass, but only increases. But the receptionist sighed and replied that, in fact, they saved my life. What am I complaining about? Saved my life? This experimental device was the same death, but slower and from exhaustion. I'll report you to the police, scammers. But the receptionist turned pale. showed me the folder, and said that I myself signed the agreement and the waiver of claims, so everything was legal. And no one in the police would even listen to me. Disappointed, I turned around and went out into the hall. Was this really the end? Then I noticed a very thin girl. She was walking irritated with a contract in her hand. Apparently, she was also refused to remove this device from her stomach. And then it hit me. No one would really listen to me alone. What if there were hundreds of us? Exactly. With the help of other people, I would achieve justice. I went up to the girl and asked her to distract the receptionist. She clearly wanted to take revenge on them and immediately agreed. While the girl was shouting and scolding the clinic, I grabbed a folder with permissions from the counter and rushed out of the clinic. All day I called patients and listened to their horrifying stories and realized that this clinic was only hiding behind helping patients. In fact, they were researching new methods of treatment and putting illegal experiments on clients. We were lab rats for them. I was so angry. Therefore, in the morning, we gathered with all the victims at the clinic. The receptionist had to call a doctor and listen to all our demands to return everything as it was. Otherwise, they would face a long trial and media coverage. With so many complaints, they would definitely not get away. As a result of negotiations, the receptionist gave up, and we were all booked in for surgeries where the devices were removed from our stomachs. The clinic lost its license anyway. Some of their patients had contacts in the police. I was glad, but now I knew that I didn't have long to live. After all, without the device, the stomach continued to collapse. I realized once again that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I was very surprised when the volunteers announced to me that they had jointly raised money for my surgery. It turned out that one of the victims was the owner of a fund to help people who got into a difficult life situation and decided to help me. I was so grateful. And Nicholas was literally jumping with happiness his little sister would live. And then I realized that I was wrong. After all, you can't live in constant distrust of people, and asking for help is not a shame and not scary. Yes, there are bad people in the world, but there are many more good people. And that's exactly what I want to be. That's why I got a job at that foundation. The world is no good without good people, and the main thing is to be among them and make it a little better. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you!